Hello, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. Sheyenne Kraemer isn't sitting in the bleachers and waiting for miracles. She's on the road, quite literally, working as a community builder. And now, Sheyenne Kraemer. Hey, everybody, it's Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. Today I'm speaking with Sheyenne Kraemer from Florida, who's leading a very interesting life. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sheyenne.
Thank you so much for having me today, Joy. It's a joy to be here. I'm always trying to imagine where to start because, first of all, yes, I'm in Florida today, but that's just today. This around me is actually my house on wheels. My husband and I have been a full-time RVers for about 5 years now. So definitely we can be found pretty much anywhere in the eastern US, but during the colder months, yes, you'll usually find us in Florida. So we're all about building communities. We spent last year going further north than we have for a while. We were up in Ohio for part of the year. We were in northeastern Georgia and working on community building projects for the first time. And it was quite an experience, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm big on community. I really am.
Yeah, we need to be.
Yeah.
Because
So,
that's what we've lost.
yeah, is it a business calling? Is it a personal calling? Has a personal calling turned into a business? Like what is that? What is that like?
That's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head. And it actually, believe it or not, goes all the way back to high school. Do you believe that in high school, I knew that my calling was to talk to other people about figuring out how to connect their head and their heart? My valedictory speech was called Follow Your Heart. And the main reason that I did that speech was because so many of my friends that I was getting ready to graduate with were going off to college to study whatever their parents thought was best for them, regardless of what it was that they wanted to be doing. And, so that was kind of the beginning of it. It ended up over time. My husband actually played a key role in what we're doing now in taking that whole idea of, we need to put heart and soul back into education, back into business, and back into our communities. And we really, really became very focused on that idea after my husband had this wild idea over a decade ago that he should run for governor of North Carolina. Now, that may or may not sound like an amazing thing, except that at the time, we were only 2 years out of a major financial collapse in our lives. So we didn't have money to put into running for governor. Nobody knew who he was. And furthermore, he felt inspired to be running as an independent candidate instead of in one of our traditional boxes, shall we say. And we were so horrified by the things that we saw in that run. I mean, he did it. He was legal. He was a certified write-in candidate. One of the big things that caused us to be horrified and made us realize that we needed to take a stand for building our own types of systems in North Carolina. And this is not the only state this happens in. In North Carolina, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you can get on the ballot with 5,000 signatures. If you're anything else, including an independent, you have to have 100,000.
Oh, wow. That's quite a lot more.
Yeah, quite a lot more. And they know that anybody who's an independent or a third party probably doesn't have the finances behind them to be able to pay people to go out and get all those signatures. So it doesn't happen. So that was just the first in many things that we learned where I looked at my husband one day and I said, "You know what, hon?" I said, "I'm really glad we did this because we got to see inside the belly of the beast. And we got to see how much that it is working to keep things the way they are." So, if that's the case, if we can't expect the systems around us to create positive change in our communities, then who has to do it? It has to be us.
Yeah. Which, leads us back to, a little less government and a lot more us.
Absolutely. I had no idea way back, because back in high school, I did not go immediately to college. And, here I was, valedictorian in my class. My mom thought I was totally nuts. But I went into an apprenticeship program, working for a large company, and I learned manufacturing from the ground up. And as part of that training, they actually trained me on how to lead and facilitate problem solving teams. Back then, they called them quality circles, but they've gone by many different names over the years. But what I learned in all of that was that if you find people who are closest to some of the problems and you engage them in conversation and question and brainstorming and pulling ideas out of the people closest to the problem, a lot of times they're the ones who are going to build the best solution. And they can usually do it for a lot less money than somebody up here who has no idea what's really going on. So that was a huge benefit I got out of my short time in corporate America. And I have since found that taking that concept to the streets is absolutely necessary, because that's where we can become more self-governing. That's where we can become more empowered to solve some of our own problems. Again, I'm like, okay, so if you're going to sit and wait for politicians to fix some of this stuff, how's that working for us?
Yeah. Yeah, that's some of the biggest problems that we have. I mean, so it's as simple as um, garbage in the neighborhood. Like,
That's an
oh,
example.
hello, there's garbage in my neighbor. Can you come and clean it up? I got a good idea. Why don't you go out with a garbage bag and clean it up? Which, by the way, I do when I walk the dogs. I
Wonderful.
carry a garbage bag with me and I clean it up. And because it irked the heck out of me for so long, and I kept thinking and telling friends, I can't believe how many McDonald's bags I'm seeing. And then I thought to myself one day, they should. And I'm like, wait, they? Who's they? They who? Who? Who's going to? I'm like, oh, the people, the houses, the people themselves. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That the people themselves should be cleaning up their own yards.
True.
And I'm thinking, well, you know what? Stop complaining. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
And that's exactly what we tell people. We've worked in and around churches. We've actually parked the RV in the parking lot of churches for 4 and 5 months at a time, and gone to work with them to try to help them to think about different ways that they can move outside of their doors and make a bigger difference in the world. We say, hey, you're the miracle we're waiting for. Stop. There's nothing in the Bible where Jesus said, sit on your hands and wait for me to return. He always said, follow me. And so it shouldn't be rocket science for people to stop and think, what would Jesus do in this situation? How can we use some of our own knowledge and talents and gifts that probably came from the Creator? How can we use those to create a better community, a better neighborhood, anything? And, people, I say it almost every day, people need to get off the bleachers and onto the playing field. And it's hard. I'm not
It's
going to say
hard.
it's not. It is, because people are all running on the hamster wheel of life, and they're running so hard and so fast just to survive, just to keep food on the table, just to keep the roof over the head. How can they stop and think about what's going on around them?
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest challenge that we've got. Although in the last couple of years, we've been very fortunate to be in places where we were able to partner with somebody who was pulling together groups of people who were saying, we want to help, we need help us get started doing something. And so at one point in time, we were in a church in Raleigh, and The gal who was one of the pastors there, she was very community oriented. She had a nonprofit where she was helping single moms and their kids. And she brought together a big group of people under her roof. And we said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to pass out these little sheets to everybody. And on here, there's just 3 or 4 questions we want you to answer. And if you'll answer those questions, we'll start to get a sense of who in the room has a similar purpose, passion, or maybe just a cause that they really care about. I said, then we're going to rearrange the room so that people with similar causes are together. And then we want you to start brainstorming on how could you guys take the skills and talents you've got, lay them on the table, and figure out what can you collectively do. I call it building superpuzzles. I say each of us was born with a piece of a puzzle within us that if we will listen, if we will explore, if we will discover, and if we will create, if we all were doing that on this planet right now, we would be living on a planet with plenty of health, plenty of prosperity, and peace in this world. So if we don't have that right now, guess what? There's too many people in the bleachers.
Yeah, it's sort of our fault. And, you know, it used to be, the community used to be any number of small religious organizations that led the community, small. And as we became secular, then they became nonprofit. And then they became businesses, and then they no longer supported the community. And this is somewhat of the problem, whereby once it becomes corporate, it loses its mission. It needs to be grassroots. It's difficult. That's like, it's difficult to keep it there, because if it gets too big, St. Jude's, right? Or the Shriners. These are big organizations that support children and medicine. And they're not secular.
No.
Although the Shriners it really isn't.
Right.
Is Shriners Mormon? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I heard, and this is just hearsay, so nobody attack me on this, but I heard that they actually were an offshoot that was born out of the Masons.
Yes, that's what I was thinking as well.
So
that's why I was like, are they? I was going to say, are they Mormons, or are they, an offshoot? So it's not really secular, although it is.
Yeah.
Teeter-totter, because the Masons, they're certainly a Christian group.
There's definitely
they're a Judeo-Christian group.
Sure.
Certainly are.
Absolutely.
So it's here we've got, civilization. It barrels forth. It keeps going. We still have the same problems. We're still human. We have families, and we have needs. We have all these things going on, and those things sort of get forgotten about. The education system doesn't take care of it. People don't attend religious services like they used to. They're so busy going, running. So communities, I cannot get on the bandwagon and shout loud enough about community. I really can't. What types of what types of community miracles have you seen?
Not enough yet. We'll say that. And I will tell you that right now, what the frustration has been in the past year or two is that there's more people who seem to be starting to feel that same pull towards creating a new type of community. But the problem is that they don't have the skills to pull it off. So many of us have gotten used to being so much siloed, so much separated, so much segregated, so much, you know, just pulling us apart all the time. And it takes, if you're really going to get into building community, you've got to be able to understand something about team building. You've got to understand about personalities and emotions and, just the human condition in general, and looking for the right type of people who can come together and work together. And right now, the people who seem to verbalize that they want to do that are the least prepared to do it. And that's what we saw. Last year was two, I'll call them false starts, but I still also think that they could somehow move forward if they decide to. But one of them, the potential of both of them was incredible. Both of them, when we walked into it initially, I was like, oh my God, this could be so amazing. One of them was actually a woman who was the trustee of a conservation trust. And the conservation trust held a 60-acre campground. It had organic farm on it. It had farm animals. It had 4 waterfalls. It had cabins. It had RV spots, tent spots, a retreat center. I mean, the whole 9 yards was on this property. And when I first met up with her, she was, first of all, thinking she wanted to create a homesteading village because, I mean, they had all the raw materials right there on the property to pretty much be able to, generate their own electricity even through all the waterfalls and, just having the water and the organic garden and the animals and all this stuff. And, but she totally was just not tuned in about how do you build a team. And it was so sad because here was what she really wanted to do. I finally pulled it out of her one day, and I was so impressed because she had noticed that there were a lot of young men going to prison for nonviolent crimes. And usually, and this is true across the country, my husband and I have seen this all over the place, it's usually because they've gotten involved in drugs somewhere along the line, which I say goes back to the fact that our school system refuses to teach our entrepreneurs how to be legal entrepreneurs. So they go to the streets and learn from the wrong people. That's the first part of the equation. So she wanted to provide an alternative to save some of these young guys, especially if they have children at home. It is not good for kids to be growing up without their dad and knowing their dad's in a prison somewhere. And, God only knows when he gets out. And who knows whether that child will ever have the influence, positive influences of a parent. So she really wanted to turn that property into an apprenticeship property to bring all these young guys onto the property and teach them the vocational trades, construction trades. That would have been the most amazing community to have, some of these young guys who, and I was willing to help her do it because I think it was feasible, but you would have had to been able to, get the court system to partner with you instead of sending them off there, send them over here. Let's get them into some skilled trades. Let's make it so that they can have a legal, way to earn
work. There's a lot of work there.
All of that. And at the same time, they would have been revitalizing the campground, which seriously needed revitalizing. And they could have learned electricity and plumbing and construction, the whole 9 yards right there. But because she didn't know how to communicate well with people, she didn't know how to build a team, it just kind of all collapsed in on her. And I'm sitting there going, wow. That could have been the coolest community you could ever seen, because there were also, this was a town that had a lot of veterans who were looking for ways to be able to do something more with their lives. We could have had a whole group of veterans.
She didn't have enough outreach.
Well, and she wouldn't let us create it. And she was, because it was difficult for her to communicate well with people. It was, she was very used to being the lady in charge, and much more of a dictator style than being able to collaborate with a group of people. So that one is the biggest sad story
Mm.
right now, but I still believe it could be revived.
Well, the interesting thing is that these ideas are sort of like the wheel, right? So one person tells a story, telling a story, and someone listens, and they say, I don't have the same dream, I have a similar dream. They're not stealing,
No,
but maybe they have the wherewithal to make it happen. And that's how these things do happen.
it's true.
It's
And see,
word of mouth, it's working with people, it's there's a lot of planning going on. There's a lot of planning going on. And sometimes these deals fall through, they don't work out, and sometimes they fall through now and they come back and they, get revitalized. And sometimes somebody goes off who worked with you when it didn't work out and they started up somewhere else. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
so worth the effort for anyone. For anyone. This is what I tell everyone. And it goes back to, if you're not doing it, if you're not solving, you're part of the problem. If there's something wrong in your community, see what you could do to make it right. So if you're very upset about garbage, go pick it up. That's what I said to myself. If you're, if there are, work in a soup kitchen, there are so many places you can, right? Do Salvation Army during Christmas, whatever it is, think to yourself, what can I do? When you hook into that community, the seeds begin to grow in different ways where, oh, is this how this is done? And the point is, it may solve a different problem for you. It may teach you how to run a business. Like you said, the kids end up selling pot or selling drugs. They're entrepreneurs. They've got a business.
yes,
They've got runners.
Yeah.
They've got buyers.
Oh, and they
They've got
use
production.
distribution network.
The whole thing. They've got a CRM. The whole thing. So I've often said, I don't understand. You've got all these kids hacking into systems. These kids are programmers. Why did they have to hack into something to prove themselves?
It's sad. It really, really is sad. And, one of the things that I'm very clear about for myself, and, if somebody out there hears and views this podcast and says, I have that idea, just know one of the reasons I'm mobile, I'll go anywhere in this country to help somebody who wants to be able to put something like this into action. And I don't have any attachment to any of it. To me, the big thing is, I don't care who does some of these things. They just need to get done.
Right. They need to get organized.
If I can help, great. If you got a whole team who's ready to go do it yourself, God bless you. Please go do it. That's my hashtag. Do the change. I'm tired of people saying be the change. After you be, you've got to do if you want to have.
Yeah. And there's so much to be done. There's so much satisfaction in it. You don't necessarily need to have a sign that says, I'm doing this, aren't I a great person? You're so busy doing it that you become that great person. Yeah. And you're learning something. It's quite honestly, you're learning a business, because whatever it is, whatever effort that is, it turns into a business. Like that nonprofit that turns into a business. The only caveat is keep it real. Like, keep that mission real, because once you lose that mission, There's nothing wrong with making profit. I'm not saying you can't make profit, but these are not necessarily profit making by themselves. Like you're not in this so that you can make profit. If you make
I
some
like to
money,
live.
not a bad thing.
I like to
But
live. Yeah, you're right.
right,
I like the term social impact business. That's what I like. I mean, a lot of people are aware of what like Tom Shoes does, okay? You buy a pair, they give a pair, okay? Things like that are simple. They don't require a nonprofit to do it. I mean, we have for-profit business activity that we do, but we take that profit and we invest it back into these projects. So, to me, unfortunately, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that we've seen that have become very political. It's like they rely on political
that's the
relationships
problem.
to get funding.
And then they
And I
become part of the
say,
problem.
well, yeah. And so, I say, well, why not? Why are more people not building a business, a for-profit business with the intention of investing into the community? When you do that, if I'm not a nonprofit, but if I bring money in and then I turn around and I use some of that money to pay somebody to go teach some homeless women something, now I still get to take that as a tax deduction. I don't pay taxes on it.
Right.
So it's like we don't have to do some of these things the way that we've been taught to do them. One of the things that used to be, and of course, after they got bought out by a big company, it no longer happens. But, I grew up in Vermont and I watched Ben and Jerry's kind of grow up out of the grassroots of, rural Vermont. And when they were young, before they got bought out, they used to have something called partner shops. And I loved what they were doing because they would set up a nonprofit to have their own Ben and Jerry's franchise. And so now they had a place for for their clients to go to work in the franchise, and the profits from the franchise went back into the nonprofit so that they could continue serving their clients. That to me is the ideal. That's social impact business. And that's what I teach a lot. That's what I try to help people understand is, even if you don't have money to put back into the community, mentor a young person, mentor somebody. That is such a need right now. We've got so many young people who want to learn about business. One of our companies, We Care Partnerships, has just launched a mentoring program where we're starting to get a lot of younger people going, oh, you mean I can work with you and learn about natural healing kinds of stuff, and I can work with you and learn about financial services and things of this nature. Like, yeah, you can. So, that's one of the programs that we launched just last month. So, there's so many ways people can get off the bleachers and onto the playing field. They just need to think about it a little bit, figure out what do you get really excited about sharing with other people. The number one thing, and this is where I get into the whole concept of you are the miracle we're looking for, is every one of us who's danced on this planet for a little while, we all have been through challenges. We've figured ways to get over, around, and through them. And we've developed wisdom as part of that. And, even if it's just writing an ebook about some of that wisdom you've acquired, or doing a little video series that can be sent out by email to somebody, whatever you've learned, whatever wisdom you've gained can become hope to somebody else.
Right.
And right now we need more hope on this planet than we have ever needed.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide rates amongst our young people are at an all-time high. Military's at an all-time high. People are feeling hopeless. And if we're not helping in that arena, again, we're part of the problem.
What's the problem? Yeah, we're so busy doing, taking kids to piano lessons, taking kids to football practice, taking kids to judo lessons. And we're not, and they're not getting anything out of it, except they're rushing around like crazy kids and then having to come home and do their homework to do it all over again tomorrow. Instead, saying to your kids, I don't know, we're going to have a small community soccer team. And I'm going to be the one that's, instead of taking you to soccer school, do something locally for the kids.
Yeah.
Create it yourself. Yeah. And then show your kids that you're a good coach or whatever. But think it through how you could do the thing. You want the kids to be an athlete. You want the kids to be athletic, and you want the kids to be involved. So think it through and not just take the easy way out. Now it means that they can't take piano lessons because now you're too busy because you've got this team. But now you're part of something. And the kids are part of something. So instead of just making them play the game, they become part of the team, the whole team. Just think out of the box. Instead of solving problems the same old way, try to come up with really cool ways of doing something that creates community.
It's true. I think one of the biggest things that we can do to help our young people is to get them more engaged in nature and the outdoors. My sons are both in their 30s, and once or twice a year, they take, like 4 or 5 days, and they just cut themselves off from the rest of the world. They go hiking up in the North Carolina mountains together. They hike the Appalachian Trail, and they've got their backpacks, and they hang hammocks in trees, and they have that connection with each other. They have that connection with nature, and a lot of our kids are just not even experiencing that. All they experience all day is this, and it's like, stop.
Like one of the things that we had when we were growing up was Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and that's been dashed because too many pedophiles.
Yeah.
So now, and then we argue, women should be able to go into the men's and boys should be able to go. We've just destroyed the whole concept.
Yeah.
Where it was a community effort, where we got maybe like a few parents to lead the troop, and now we were going to have adventures, and the leaders were trusted. They were in the neighborhood. Everybody knew them. We need to go back to do these types of things where the people that lead the Boy Scouts are not from another city. They're from your city. Everyone knows them. These need to be simplified.
They do. And it doesn't have to be difficult. One of the things that keeps kind of flitting through my brain to mention, I actually watched a documentary last summer that brought me to tears. And I mean, big time tears. I haven't cried like that in a long time. And I afterwards, I was thinking about it, and I was like, why did this affect me so deeply? And it was really because the documentary was about community coming together in a way that I was wondering if it was possible for it to happen. And granted, this was 20 years ago, but it happened, and it was effective. And it was basically a story of a community who had been taken over by the drug dealers, and more kids were getting, into the meth and the crack and all that kind of stuff. And they were dealing, and they were using, and kids were dying from drug overdoses, and on and on and on. And it wasn't until the mayor's kid got into it and a judge's kid got into it that everybody started going, oh my God, we've got to do something. What do we do? And I don't know how they met this woman, but I identified strongly with her. But she came into the town as kind of an outside consultant, and she went to all of the Christian churches in that town and said, you know, if you want your town back, if you want your kids back, then you guys need to unite. This baloney of the Christian community having this little segment over here and this little segment over here and this little segment over here, and we can't work together because we're all protecting our resources, instead of being stewards of those resources and looking to see how you can serve a greater good together with those resources. And it was wild because she got them all to come together, and they all agreed that they were going to do a march through their town together, and they weren't going to be marching for politicians to beg politicians to change something. They were going to march to beg God to come into their town and help clean it up. So here you had, oodles of churches, oodles of congregation members. And the day that they were supposed to do this, it was raining cats and dogs. And the woman almost called it off. She looked at one of the pastors and she said, nobody's going to show up. It's raining like crazy out here. And he's like, excuse me? He said, do drug dealers do deals in the rain? And she's like, well, yeah. He said, then I think we have to go. And she's like, okay. And believe it or not, on this horribly rainy day, 4,300 people marched in the streets together. And they all had these big banners saying, God, we're asking for your help. We're asking for you to come in here and show us how to take our town back, how to get our kids back, and how to clean out the drugs. And it was just the coolest show because, they did it. I mean, and kids started having prayer circles before every game, and, all these different things in the community, people starting to come together and addressing all these different things. And then all of a sudden, the dealers, people all of a sudden knew who they were, and they were exposed, and they started going to jail. And over time, the town came together and turned themselves into a major tourist town. So, that gave me more hope, I guess, than anything I had seen in a long time. Because that's the power we have in every community in this country, to be able to take back our communities and invite the Creator back in and say, you know what? We don't know what to do. Show us the way.
The thing is, it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. It's a little difficult. Mm-hmm. So like your other example where the woman was the conservator of this land and she didn't know what to do. Had she opened herself up to taking someone else in, step by step, she would have figured it out.
She would have. And, and I already had a lot of, I've laid a lot of foundation and groundwork. I mean, I've written papers about some of these things and how to put these together. I come from apprenticeship world. That's what I came from. Mine was manufacturing, but apprenticeship is apprenticeship. And I certainly had good, solid understanding about how to put together those kinds of programs. And, and it was funny because, I look for those crazy synchronicities that happen. And she was having young people show up on her doorstep asking for help. She even went to court for one guy and stood for him to try to keep him out of prison. And, I'm like, can you not see this, whatever you believe in is asking for you to do this.
Right. It's right here. It's right here.
Here.
This guy, now that you just got him out of jail, now he could be your caretaker.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He could be the first one in your group.
Yep. Absolutely. So the potential is out here to do great things.
Yeah. It's quite possible that it wasn't the right time for her. If she wasn't willing to open up, it would never. I mean, obviously, she can't do it herself. And an adventure like that requires, I'm going to be very metaphorical, a lot of hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Requires a lot of hearts.
Absolutely.
And different types of hearts, because everybody's going to be doing something different, and everybody's got to work together.
Yep.
And everybody's got to trust each other.
Yep. That's it.
And something like, that's why I say, try to keep it simple. If you feel that you need to do something, try to keep it simple and then build out.
Yes.
Build out. So if she really wanted to do something, she could have said, okay, you know what? I'm going to simply have a retreat. Every August, I'm going to open this place up for a retreat. People are going to come and camp out. And I'm going to get, paperwork for that. And that, it's like a Woodstock. Yeah. Every August, Woodstock.
There you go.
All right, on my property, whatever. And play it out.
Yeah.
You meet people, you begin to trust people, people come back. You see it's too big, it's too small, you need this, you need whatever it is. You begin to learn. You build those skills. If you don't build those skills, you begin to trust other people who have those skills.
Yes.
And you just start small. Sometimes you've just got to do it. Make a few mistakes.
Yep.
That's
how we've done everything on the road for the last 5 years. We just say, you know what? We're going to try this and see what works and see what doesn't. And, you modify. I mean, that was part of my corporate America training too. They always talked about, you make a plan, you do the plan, then you check and see what were the results according to, what I wanted versus what I got. And if you didn't get the results you wanted, you adjust the plan and you do it again.
Over and over again.
And
it's the 3 month, it's the 6 month, it's the year plan. You're constantly pivoting because something happens.
Yeah.
And it's time to pivot. You can't keep saying, oh, we're going to keep going this way. This is our mission. The mission stays the same.
Right.
How you get those goals, your strategy changes.
That's exactly it.
You're trying to make shoes for America. You may need to get your leather from a different place suddenly.
Exactly.
You're not like going to go out of business. Oh, that's it. No more leather from Argentina. So that's it. We're not making shoes anymore. Sorry, no more shoes.
That's it. And that is the key. And people get so caught in, well, this is the vision and this is the strategy and this is how it's going to be. And I'm like, you know what? The world is changing a lot faster than you can keep up with right now. And so you've got that pivot word is so important. It's like, you plan, do, check, adjust. That's it. And you have to keep adjusting as things keep changing. And a lot of people have real challenges with that. That change.
Well, that's sort of why we're sort of stuck where we are, because we're all figuring, let government do it.
Yes.
And government's screwing it up. So it can't be done. And it's so defeatist. That's what's making it hopeless, because we're in a vicious cycle where we've forgotten that we, to use the term lightly, we have that control. We are the community.
We are the miracle.
They're working for us, not the other way around.
That's right.
They're supposed, we pay taxes and they work for us.
Yeah.
Therefore, if we're not telling them what to do, if we're not feeding them the right programs, if we're not involved, they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. And
that's what they're doing. Whatever they want to do. And basically that means that they're at the best restaurants, eating the best meals, having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's nothing stopping us from building our own systems. One of my favorite quotes comes from Buckminster Fuller. And, we actually, my husband and I, based on our experiences with his run for governor, we wrote a book called Skip the Politics and Create Heaven on Earth. And the first page of the book is Buckminster Fuller's quote. And it says, "You can't create change by fighting the existing reality. Instead, you must build new systems that make the old ones obsolete. that in a nutshell is why we're on the road. We're laying foundations for new systems and looking for people all along the way to say, all right, you want to jump in and get involved? You want to help us to build this new system? Because we're grassroots. We're building from the bottom up.
There you go. What a beautiful thing. Is there, are there any that you could speak of? Are there any interesting projects that you're incubating?
Right now, I'm not sure, other than one. We do have one that we're negotiating right now in Raleigh, North Carolina, to work on doing a live event in September on suicide prevention. You know, again,
Important.
you look at the young people. In fact, in Raleigh, one of the major universities got some pretty negative publicity last year. They had 16 suicides on their campus last year. That's unheard of. It's horrific, but it is so telling of the state of a lot of our young people right now. And I truly believe that part of that epidemic that's going on is because so many of our young people are being fed the story that, you know, there is no God, there is no higher power, you're just here, and they're saying, so what? You know, is this all there is?
Also, you know, this government, the United States is bad.
Yeah.
You need to be, right is wrong and wrong is right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not sure. They don't trust because the information that they're fed is absolutely right until it's absolutely not right. How could you do that to me? So it's not like, okay, Christopher Columbus was a human being. He wasn't a great, he wasn't a saint. It's not Saint Christopher Columbus,
No.
okay? He was, however, a very brave man, a discoverer. Okay, so his business was this. Just let's learn about people and their good and their bad instead of identifying them and judging them today by today's merits for yesterday's deeds, getting the kids all confused. So now they don't trust anybody. The only heroes they have are in the comics.
And the video games.
And the video games. They, and we're not leaving them with any hope for humanity. And don't say to me, there's no hope for humanity. Because I can't believe that.
I can't either. I still believe that humanity is a miraculous creation, and that we have not even begun to scratch the surface of our potential. And
I fervently believe we're here to fix it, not F it. To fix it, not the other F word. The fix it word. We're here to fix it.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Not that it's broken, but we can fit. We created the wheel. We create, there are many things that we can do.
We can. Absolutely. Because we
so
are
we
the
can
miracle.
fix it. We can communicate with each other.
Yes.
We can, develop complex systems. We can go to the moon. We can do many things. We can fix it. We just don't give up and say, why did we bother going to the moon? We probably never did. That was a lie anyway.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, these poor kids.
Yeah, it's true. And the bottom line of it all is, yes, it's good to learn from history, but if you're not learning how to think for yourself, how to do critical thinking, then, we're wasting a generation at this point, because we got a lot of very brilliant minded young people on the planet right now. But if they can't find a reason to be hopeful, they don't want to hang around. And we need to address that issue. So suicide prevention is the topic that I'll be very involved in this year. I've lost 3 friends to suicide, and one of them was in high school, which was why I believe that I started the whole follow your heart, connect your head and your heart kind of concept, because it was just devastating to lose a good friend that young. And then I've had more since then. So it's like,
I think, I do remember, as if it was yesterday, how difficult it was for me in high school, all the feelings that I had, and not understanding any of them, and not being able to communicate them, other than, you don't understand, Mom and Dad. That was the only way I could communicate them.
Yeah.
And every child does that.
Yep.
Because they're, I mean, it's not, it's almost as if, you're 13 with no hormones. You wake up the next day and you're flooded with hormones, and you have thoughts you never had before. You don't know why you're having them. You can't figure them out. You're embarrassed to talk about them. People can tell you it's okay. You're still embarrassed to talk about them. And it doesn't get better. It keeps getting worse. For men, it never stops. For women, it eventually levels off. It's called menopause.
Right.
But, I mean, we're very complex creatures.
Yeah.
Whether you want to call it a machine or not, it's a term. I like to call creatures and not machines, but there are a lot of things that we do because other things are in place that chemically are driving it. And we don't know that we're doing it that way because this, and this, and we can't communicate those things. And even if somebody had told me, listen, Joy, you're 14 now and you have all these feelings and this is why, I would look at them and go, huh? What? And I'd still be confused.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's not an easy thing. It's not like you can explain these things, but certainly sex education didn't help then and it's not helping now. So something else. Obviously, it's not working, because I remember this is a funny story. When I must have been in like what they called middle school now. So they called it junior high then. So I must have had one of my first sex education classes, and I came home to that day from school, and we had dinner. Dad, Mom, my sister, myself, and I sat there, having just learned what I learned in sex education. And I looked at my mother and father, and I was shaking my head. And they're like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, shaking my head. I can't believe it. And like, what? I can't believe you guys did it 2 times. And I got up and left.
Oh my.
And the reason I'm telling this story is because I knew the information, but it was disgusting to me. And that's what I'm saying. I understand, I understand why they want to teach children this. But now, of course, my mother came upstairs to talk to me about it. Not my father, no. And she made a joke at the end, and we did it more than 2 times. And I was like, ow! In any case, and we're still doing it. So don't come into the room when the door's closed. I won't. But, it's just not education. You just can't. It's not like, here's a book, learn this, and it'll be okay. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And we're still doing it that way now. So it didn't work then. It's not working now. It's not working. It's not working.
With some added twists now.
Yes, exactly. It's getting more complicated, and our education, we need a little help with our education system.
We do. And as I've described, somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, how do you describe this this huge system that you and your husband are working on putting together would actually consist of two separate for-profit businesses. One that's all about helping more people learn how to use their natural gifts and talents in their own business. The other one about combining small businesses to be involved in more community development projects. And I said, well, I finally think I have the phrase about what we really are all about. And it's all about, for us, putting the creator back into education, business, and community. That's what we're here to be about.
You know, I think people get all hysterical about or denominational about creator.
Mm-hmm. True.
And they're like, I don't believe that. I'm like, I mean, call it the Big Bang. I really don't care what you call it. Right? Call it order out of chaos. I don't care what you call it. But I'm calling it creator. I'm not saying it's an old man in the sky with a beard. I'm not saying that.
No.
You've got to have some kind of concept of something beautiful out of nothing.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's called hope and faith. And again, I'm not trying to say that it needs to be any particular religion. And I don't even say that it needs to be religious, but there's a spirit and a faith in that where you are not hopeless.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely. I agree.
It's like there's nothing wrong with separating the secular world. There's nothing wrong with that. But eliminating the spirit world,
Yes.
that again, how's that working for us? It's not. It's not.
Nope.
If you want to become a philosopher, and if you want to discuss the elements, I still think that is more hopeful than just being like Nietzsche and saying nothing. There's nothing.
Right.
Because I don't even think Nietzsche said it was nothing. I think he was saying that, it wasn't as we thought it was, but let's not get too philosophical. But I'm merely saying that we have to, as human creatures, need hope.
We do. And, I like the term, the God of your understanding.
Exactly.
I don't care what your understanding is, but,
exactly.
Even the Big Bang had to have something behind it to cause it to happen.
Right. And what's the term? I'm never going to remember it. Yeah. Okay. I'll remember it tonight at 3:00 in the morning. I'll give you a call. Intelligence. Yeah. There's another something intelligence. Yeah. I hate myself. What's my name? So, how do people find you on the internet? Sheyenne?
Oh, I'm all over the internet. I have a YouTube channel. I invite people to subscribe to. I've got a lot of information out there. I have LinkedIn. I have Facebook. It's just my name in all of those cases. And probably the easiest way to be able to reach me, because people can actually get to my calendar link if they actually wanted to talk to me about something, is on SheyenneKraemer.com. So it's just my name, right as it's on the screen here. No dots or dashes, just SheyenneKraemer.com. That's the easiest.
Very good. I will make sure that I put that in the notes of the show.
Sounds good.
Something intelligence. It's going to really bother me. Let's see if I can find it before we go.
Just to complete it.
Yeah, because I can't stand myself now. It's not artificial. That's why it's not artificial intelligence.
I know. I was thinking, no, not that.
What is it called? Not creative intelligence. Oh, I hate myself.
Don't say that.
I don't like when I forget, like, really some kind of intelligence. But it's called not creative. Now, though, it's telling me creative. Yeah. Something, it's a phrase that means maybe ChatGPT will tell me.
Ooh, maybe. If you're lucky.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know anything before 2022. Okay, everybody, hold on. Let's see what ChatGPT does. Divergent thinking. No. Oh, I can't stand myself. If I come up with it, I will put it in the notes of the show.
There you go.
And then I'll also email you, and you'll be like, "Oh, is that what you was talking about?"
Okay.
Divine intelligence? No.
I would have said divine intelligence. That's what I would have said.
Something like it's.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay with that phrase.
That's not the one I meant, though. It's not the one I meant.
It'll come to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a joyful time, and it's gone by quickly, as it always.
Yes, it has. I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
May that word that I can't think of, intelligence, be with you. Maybe it is divine.
The force will be with us, I promise you.
And yeah, the other one too.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and yeah. Ooh, ow. Live long and prosper.
Good deal. Thank you, Joy.
You bet. Take care.